Hello there, and welcome back to the SWTVC podcast, the audio home of the SWTVC crew. Earlier this week, John and I began our chat with the one and only Tim from Bossk's Bounty, where we began a little dive into the original 96 and what Hasbro has accomplished as far as completing them, as well as what they have left ahead of them. We wrapped up looking at A New Hope, and we're picking up where we left off, with The Empire Strikes Back. I'll throw it back to John.
On to The Empire Strikes Back. There were 29 figures released in the Kinner line. There's one coming as an update this year that we know about, which was announced at FanFirst Friday, which is Lando Calrissian in his beautiful Bespin Administrator Becaped, is that a word? His Becaped outfit.
That was one of my top 10 figure wants. I'm glad I was able to leave him off of my want list when I was revising it, since they've now confirmed he's coming.
And he was another character that was updated in 2004, and I don't think we've seen any version of him in the Bespin outfit since then, like not even a 5 POA. So that sort of goes with the question of why didn't they do some of these Empire Strikes Back figures in the 40th anniversary year for Empire?
Ugh.
Like we got the carbon freezing chamber and we got a few repacks, but they put out a carbon freezing chamber with no figures to go with it. We're getting Bespin Leia this year and we're getting Bespin Lando this year, which I'm very happy about.
This is one of the great mysteries, really, isn't it? Why the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back was almost completely ignored. I find it astounding, really. And to bring out a carbon freezing chamber playset and not have an updated Lando, I thought that was just the weirdest decision ever, to be honest.
He would have been a great pack-in for that too. I mean, since he's not an army builder, you don't have to.
Because I heard about that freezing chamber long before it was even leaked. To be honest, I knew it was coming. It's one of the only times I've ever sort of had any prior knowledge of what's coming, and I was really excited about it because obviously we'd had the Jabba's Palace playset with 2 pack-in figures. So I thought, here we go. So I was sort of kind of speculating and thinking that we'd have the same. And, they could have done some amazing things with that. They could have put a brand new Lobot and a Lando in there, or, the Bespin Leia could have been ready, perhaps, if they'd sort of thought about it a bit more. One of the Ugnaughts, if they want to use a repack, could have gone in there. So, great. One of the great mysteries why we got virtually nothing for the 40th anniversary is so strange.
The carbon freezing chamber doesn't even have the Empire 40th logo on it. I don't think there's a single bit of TVC merch that had the 40th Empire logo, but we're getting the Lucasfilm 50th logo plastered on some cards.
So do you guys want him to have a cape that's sculpted or
soft goods?
Soft goods.
Yeah. The cape on the previous one is probably maybe the best thing about the figure. I don't think it's actually too bad, the cape. So, yeah.
It's complicated because it's got like the kind of gold pattern on the inside and the blue on the outside.
Yeah.
And because the 2004 figure, it wasn't terrible for the time, but he's got the swivel elbows, and now a lot of them, the torso is kind of turning yellow.
Yeah.
The plastic's reacting to sunlight or something. I'm not sure, but it doesn't look great. So as far as the other Empire Strikes Back figures that have been updated in Vintage Collection, that includes Dengar, Princess Leia Organa in her Hoth outfit, which received a photoreal update in 2019, Luke Skywalker in Bespin fatigues, which also got the photoreal update in 2020, the AT-AT Commander, 4LOM or 4LOM, as the original Kinner commercial called him, the Twin Pod Cloud Car Pilot, Han Solo in Bespin outfit, which got photoreal in 2020, Luke Skywalker Hoth outfit, which is rumored for a photoreal repack in 2021, and Princess Leia in her Bespin outfit. Do you guys think those are all pretty good figures? Have all been done since 2010, so they weren't really. I think 4LOM was 2007.
The Bespin Luke, I was shaking my head to that because that's an instance of the non-photoreal original version is the one that I display. The photoreal update on that figure is disgraceful. I absolutely loathe how that figure turned out. So, but that's just me. I'm so sorry. I think that was my least favorite figure of 2020, was just purely based on how much he looked like Sloth from Goonies. I just couldn't handle it.
I think the photoreal often doesn't work on figures, old sculpts that have been around. I think the photoreal really works well when they give us a new figure. But I think putting the photoreal on older sculpts, it often it often has a bit of an issue. I think the Lando General one was another one that didn't work so well, So
mixed results on the Han as well.
And I've seen on a lot of the photoreal, I don't know why it is, but a lot of their hairline isn't like painted very well. Like they get a lot of skin into their hair. So that's why a lot of the newer figures like the Din Djarin build-up pack has hair sculpted separately. And like some of the new Han Stormtrooper head, the new Luke Yavin head, et cetera, all have separately sculpted hair, which I think works really well.
Yeah.
And that combined with the photoreal is the way to go. One of those figures I think could be updated with photoreal and look very good is Dengar.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of, along with the Empire 40th, I don't know why they didn't take the opportunity to repack all of the bounty hunters in Vintage Collection or do new versions. And we'll get to those characters in a second. That was another thing that I think would have sold amazingly well. So some of these figures were updated again before Vintage Collection, and that includes Yoda, Han Solo in the Hoth outfit, Snowtrooper or Imperial Stormtrooper Hoth battle gear, whatever you want to call it, IG-88, and drumroll please, Bossk himself. So I think the Yoda they redid in the Cave of Evil set a couple years ago as part of the 3-pack. I like that one quite a bit. I think that looks really nice.
I do too. I think it turned out really well.
Yeah, and they've done tons of Han in his Hoth outfit, hood up, hood down, brown, blue. I think IG-88 and Bossk are on the cusp. They've been released multiple times since then in Saga Legends and that sort of thing. As the resident Bossk expert, Tim, do you think we need a new Bossk, or are you happy with that one? Makes an appearance in all of your videos.
Yeah, I think the only thing you could possibly do to improve that figure is give him ball jointed hips.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from that, it's a great figure. I don't think they can really do too much to improve him, to be honest. I actually prefer it to the larger version, which we don't mention.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. Some of those figures from that era, their joints could be a little bulky, but in general, I think they're very good. I think they should have re-released IG-88 and Bossk and the rest of the bounty hunters last year, because they're not in the Vintage Collection proper, but they're on the vintage cards.
Yeah.
Maybe as part of the Walmart original 96 repack situation, they'll get to those.
Not Walmart, please, but yes.
So that's a good question, actually. Do you think Hasbro consider the VOTC and the Vintage Saga collection as part of the Vintage Collection? Therefore, those are already ticked off. So when we say finish the 96,
right,
I think we're talking about, I'm certainly talking about the ones that we just have not got on any type of vintage card. I think, of course, we can talk about the ones that need updating from 2004 and 2006. But do you think Hasbro consider those as like checked off?
Well, it's hard to say. I would have said yes, but with the announcement of the Endor Leia, who is in the 30th anniversary Vintage Collection, I think now they're like, oh, she's a brand new debut into Vintage Collection. So I don't know if they do. I don't think they do at this point. Yeah. And with the team changeover constantly, it's hard to say what,
Well, and with all new Lando as well coming this year too.
It's a good point, actually, that Leia, because, that was in the Vintage Saga collection, wasn't it? And they've haven't done too much to it, but they've done what they consider enough to bring it into they even said it, for the first time ever in the Vintage Collection, we have Leia Endor. So, possibly they don't,
She's got a new head and she's got a new VC number for the first time. So it's insane that of all the 192 figures we've gotten in the Vintage Collection, we don't have some of those like Ben Kenobi or Tatooine Luke or Bossk IG-88, even Yoda on an Empire card. Because Yoda was the Revenge of the Sith Yoda in 2010, which was part of the Return of the Jedi wave. It was released on a Return of the Jedi card first before they realized, maybe not. And I know that's pretty valuable, but
it is. I tried to get one when I was going back and filling in the holes in my collection.
That's the Canadian card, right? The Canadian. Yeah, I've got one of those. Yeah.
Nice. I don't, sad to say. So there was 2 figures that were updated to different movie cards, including the TIE Fighter pilot, who we just got again on a Return of the Jedi card with an Empire Strikes Back film out, which is not great. And then R2-D2 with sensor scope, which was changed to an extension arm, put on a Jedi card in 2004. So as far as the TIE Fighter pilot, that was one I just got, the new version the other day. You don't actually see a TIE Fighter pilot on screen in Empire Strikes Back, weirdly enough. And then all the footage of the TIE pilots in the cockpits in Return of the Jedi is recycled from A New Hope.
That's amazing, actually. I never knew that. about
Me
the Empire
neither.
Strikes Back.
Yeah.
So you never see a TIE fighter pilot in the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's
god.
Even though
amazing.
it debuted in the Empire Strikes Back line.
But obviously the
Yeah.
Cardback is the asteroid chase, isn't it? So
Yeah. So it needs, I would prefer it if it was on an Empire card.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things where with these repack waves, they update the figure, but they don't really update the card at all.
yeah,
Other than, to change the legal text and that sort of thing.
I think that's a missed opportunity with some of these repacks where it would be a good way to incentivize folks to double dip on these figures. I mean, besides the photo reel or whatever updates they claim to make to some of these figures, having that TIE pilot reissued on a Empire card would have been awesome.
I completely agree. We need the TIE pilot on that card. The problem I have with it is that, do you think that maybe they think, because those figures are supposedly for new collectors, aren't they?
That's what they say.
So if they did put it, if they did put him on an Empire card, then you're almost saying they're not, because anyone that's a carded collector is going to want that. So that's probably why they didn't. But
Yeah.
the figure itself needs badly updating anyway. So
It's a terrible figure.
I was looking at it, because the legs were updated in 2004, so it doesn't have ankles, it doesn't have the ball joint hips, and then it was kind of piecemeal over the years, like they updated him for the Biggs in TIE Pilot outfit figure, and then they did finally with the clone head and the closed helmet, and then they've released it many, many times in TIE Fighters over the years.
Including 2018, right?
Yeah, the Walmart one. And so, because the one they just put out is, technically it's Lieutenant Oxixo, because it's got the silver stripe on his, like the silver mohawk sort of thing. And I did way too much research on this yesterday. So that is the one that when Luke and Han are in their Millennium Falcon gunner stations, you see one TIE pilot. It's actually the first TIE pilot you ever see in A New Hope. And it's that guy with the silver mohawk. It actually should extend down a little bit, but it doesn't. But you know what? We're splitting hairs at this point. And then all of the ones in the cockpit in A New Hope, they have some sort of, silver paint or something on them. There's actually 3. So it's one with the silver mohawk, one with the silver tears or gray, silver stripes on his face, and then one with one of the Imperial logos on his forehead has a little wedge cut out. And then at some point, Hasbro thought that one of them didn't have an Imperial logo right here, so they actually made that figure, which I totally forgot about. So we have options. But then the blank, regular, just straight black helmet is only really seen, as far as I know, in the Emperor's arrival scene and when they're running through the second Death Star as Luke is dragging Vader to the shuttle.
right,
So that's a little bit of a history lesson for you
that's
there.
good.
So,
Good knowledge.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Impressive.
Thank you, Disney Plus, for your screenshotting abilities, because otherwise I would have no idea what's going on. But so I would like a plain all black helmet version on the Empire card
Yeah.
with new legs. Some of the joints are bulky on the existing figure. They could do a top down redo, frankly.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty dreadful figure. Actually, I'm looking at it right now.
It's a bit of an odd choice, really, isn't it, to put in that wave, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind
I
of
think
goes back, just really, really lightly touch on it. One of our notes, one of your notes here, John, and then I think I've mentioned it a few times. I was just on Victoria's live stream too of who are these for?
Yeah.
Because
they're supposed to not be at retail, but all of them have been, except for the one with Vader, Hoth Leia, Jedi Luke, and Echo Base Han.
they're not supposed to be at retail yet. They're designed for new collectors, but
who wouldn't know about Darkside
Yeah,
or
it's
Pulse or Entertainment Earth.
You're right, though. That first wave with Hoth Leia, Luke, Jedi never hit retail, did it? So maybe they thought, the model that we've got for these not hitting retail, it isn't really working. Maybe they're not selling because nobody knows about them. Perhaps we should accidentally, on purpose, make sure that these other waves do hit retail.
Yeah.
and that was part of the thing that they said in the Fan First Friday too. It's like, oh yeah, we figured it out. We'll get them under a different SKU number in the future. And it was like, it took you 2 years to figure out that mistake.
And because during the first run of Vintage Collection, they had the Saga Legends, the Shadows of the Dark Side packaging figures where they could run, and still great quality, super articulated figures, some of which had been on vintage cards previously. They would have 2 separate SKUs. They'd be right next to each other on the pegs, Vintage and then Saga Legends. And you can get battle droids and clone troopers and Darth Vader and Chewbacca and the main characters and army builders for the new fans in that line, and then keep Vintage Collection to the best versions of characters. Not that they didn't have main characters in Vintage, but, they could dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
Or in Legacy Collection or 30th Anniversary Collection. So I wouldn't mind if they had those figures in stores in a separate peg, something like that.
Yeah.
They could do that for the figure that has never been updated on a Vintage card, but is a pretty good figure, which is Zuckuss, originally for LOM. And those two were released in 2010 on each other's name cards because, they were released in the Vintage Kenner days. And then somebody at some point later said, the droid should have the numbers and the alien should have the letters, basically.
Did those figures have VC numbers?
They not in the main line. They had the same as the rocket firing FET. So they had VCP 02 and 03, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, sorry, 03 was FET, wasn't it? So I think it's
so they were 01 and 02.
VC. Yeah.
Okay.
So because Forlom was packed on the regular line, but Zuckuss never has been because he was put out in 2009, right before Vintage started.
Yeah, I like that figure. It's a good figure. Screen accurate. It's good.
There are a lot of older figures that are pretty good quality. And that's kind of what's frustrating with some of the carry forwards of older sculpts, older molds in the Vintage collection, where it's like some of the ones they're choosing to bring forward are not those candidates that are Vintage collection quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned in my comments on my live stream with John the other day that no figures from the Legacy collection have been brought forward into the Vintage collection yet. And then I think somebody corrected them saying there was one, and or they used the same sculpt, and I can't remember which figure that was. I do apologize, but there are so many in that line which are good enough for the Vintage collection.
I saw that on the stream, and because like episode 1 and episode 2 Obi-Wan from Legacy Collection have been brought forward into Vintage, and so has the Build-A-Droid, Death Star droid, as we said, on the 3-pack, but very, very few. And yeah, there's a lot of potential because that line has a lot of great stuff that they could easily put on a card and get out again for fans that don't have it, or to make a definitive version. So another sort of gray area figure is the Rebel Soldier and Hoth battle gear. Same with the Rebel Commander in the Vintage line. The Rebel Commander had the plain white outfit that you see on most of the soldiers in Empire Strikes Back, but the Rebel Soldier figure had that same sculpt with the brown vest that you see in the Echo Base Trooper. And so they kind of updated the brown vest character with the correct sculpt in 2011 and changed the film out and changed the name. So the Rebel Soldier Hoth battle gear, the Vintage figure is the guy in the trench standing in front of the cannon. It's on a blue card, or it's on an orange card, sorry. They updated it to a blue card in 2018. They swapped the image. They made the figure more like it was a repack, but they made it more like the character on the card. But in the Black Series, they actually did the correct color and the correct image. So it's one of those weird gray areas that hasn't been completely updated.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind them to reissue that 2018 version again, but with a bubble that actually stays on the card and an updated card to be orange and accurate.
Because the figure itself, it's not too bad. That was a Legacy Collection figure, right?
I believe so. It's a nice figure. I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's slightly amended, but it was.
Yeah, because they were going to have two versions. They were going to have a running change in Legacy, but they never got around to it, and they packed them in a few multi-packs and things like that. It's a fun figure. It was really the only one from that repack wave that sold well in the Snoke wave.
Yeah. There's that's an example of where they've made a correction from the original Kenner run, which I don't mind, because then they eventually got round to giving us the figure with, that card exists. I know it's the wrong color; it should be the orange, right? If it's going to if it's going to match perfectly, but at least they've got that card out, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's like, with the Zutton thing, going back to that, if they bring out that original card, then the fact that they've put Zutton out doesn't bother me with that new card, because we will get the original one eventually.
Yeah.
We've got the figure, we've got the card, it's kind of a mix and match. And going back to the alternate card, there were 3 Empire Strikes Back characters that got repacked into Return of the Jedi with new images, new film outs, which were Luke Skywalker Bespin fatigues on a blue background, a nicer close-up of him. Leia Organa Bespin gown, which is a medium shot instead of a close-up, and then Yoda, which they changed to Yoda the Jedi Master, and instead of looking to the left, he's basically standing up and looking to the right. Luke is one of those cases where they've now put that figure on a Vintage card 3 times, in 2007, 2010, and 2020. any one of those, they could have done the blue card, and I would have been happy with.
Yeah.
Maybe they can do it and finally give us the new head sculpt.
That's the only way you could get me to really be excited about that figure again is to all new head sculpt on that guy. But I would love the alternate card for him.
Oh, absolutely. The looky, I don't know, some people call it the look around Luke or the gunslinger Luke or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that other image, the grainy walking Luke, you know, as classic as it is, you need that looky round one.
And then as far as Leia Organa Bespin gown, that one's maybe not as iconic. I don't know. But they released her on the alternate card, the sort of the prototype vintage card in 2012 as well. So she's already gotten 2 card releases, but I think that figure's good if she's a candidate for photoreal.
Yeah, sorry, what did you say there about the cards with her? They released, did you say they released 2?
Well, so that was in 2012. They did a wave, and they also put
the
it
Lost Line.
Yeah, the Lost Line look.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
I forgot the name of it, but yeah, they also put her in the Carbonite set with Jar Jar Binks and Carbonite.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought for a minute that I've missed a card here, and they've actually given us that alternate image card. I thought, what?
Panic.
Yeah.
Sorry to scare you. Just to say that, yeah, she's already gotten 2 different releases, but that was kind of like a chase. It was just the same wave repacked on different cards at the same time.
Which I wouldn't mind if they did things, and I know I've said it multiple times already, but that's a fun thing for collectors, is if they, you know, even if it's just the same wave and you just send out the same wave, but a case, you know, 1 out of every 3 cases is a different card back set. I mean, that's infuriating. But also gives me motivation to live.
Some collectors get the alt card backs, and the rest of us have panic attacks. So that's exciting. And then for the ones that have never been updated in Vintage Collection, there's the Imperial Commander, which there's a story there, 2-1B, FX7, AT-AT Driver, Lobot, the other Bespin Security Guard. We haven't talked about the first one. The Ugnaught, and C-3PO with removable limbs. And then I'll just say, while we're on the topic, there was 2 that have never quite been updated with mustache. And as you can see, I'm pro mustache. The Rebel Commander with the brown scarf, and then the one of the Bespin Security Guards. So quite a few of those figures are good enough, I think, to put on a vintage card, like the AT-AT Driver especially.
Yeah, got a choice of 2 Ugnaughts. Either of those would do, you know?
Yeah.
I probably prefer the brown one if I had to pick, but yeah.
On the Imperial Commander, because they did release in one of the 3 packs, they had an Imperial Commander, which was just Captain Nita again. But that's a case where the vintage card was an image of General Veers.
Yeah.
The fit in a gray tunic. The figure was in a black tunic. And General Veers, I did a post on it separately, but the AT-AT Commander in the vintage line was also General Veers, but the vintage collection was a new guy.
Yeah.
And then they put General Veers on a card in like Sears or maybe another country. I can't remember the exact history, but on like a completely blank card. I think it might have been Canada. That said General Veers, but it was the AT-AT Driver or the Imperial Commander. One of these weird situations.
Yeah, you did an entire history lesson post dedicated to that.
Yeah, and I can't even remember.
No, that's fine. The info's out there if anybody wants to find it. It's on the SWTVC Instagram.
But so they've done a lot of black and gray Imperial officers over the years. Yeah. They don't always sell super well. I remember piles of Moff Jared, however you want to say it, in Walmart back in 2006. The Captain Nita is a good figure. It's kind of got some bulky elbows and shoulders and that sort of thing. I would love an all-new General Veers, but then do you put him on his own card at that point? Which I say yes in that case.
I think they could get some mileage, a lot of mileage out of a new Imperial officer sculpt.
Yeah.
A lot of mileage out of it.
Because that was the plan with Nita, was they sculpted his rank badge separately so you could do a new one every time.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite look amazing. Like the Tarkin sculpt I like, but he was green. It's a whole situation as well.
Oh yeah, I wasn't happy with the skirt either, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at what's happening with the 6-inch line, they obviously did the new sculpt for Tarkin, I think was maybe the first one that they did with that, and then they gave them Admiral Piet, and General Veers shares some of that sculpting. So yeah,
I think Thrawn does too.
So who? Sorry,
Thrawn as well. I think.
Yeah. So you, as you say, you could get a lot of mileage out of a new sculpt. Starting with the Imperial Commander.
Yeah,
and Admiral Piet is one that we really need a new version of, because the only one we have of him was from '98. And he's like one of the main officers in the movies. 2-1B definitely need a new version of. We got a Revenge of the Sith version, which has like the scary needle on his hand. And they put the old Power of the Force one in a Vintage Collection 3-pack at some point.
Yeah.
But it's not quite up to standards. FX7, I think, the 2002 figure is very good. And they could easily put him on a card.
That's the Power of the Jedi one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, the Legacy Collection AT-AT driver, I think, is also quite good.
Yeah, he's the one that was repacked into the Vintage Collection 3-pack, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So he has got the ball-jointed arms, elbows.
They did a Saga Collection AT-AT driver, or AT-AT driver, excuse me, with the swivel elbows and everything. But the Legacy Collection, which was in the same wave as like the Zuckuss and Wilro Hood, that has a removable helmet with the clone head underneath.
Yeah. You see, that's the thing. I think some people have said that possibly that helmet is, even though the helmet for the AT-AT driver is it looks oversized anyway, same as the TIE fighter pilots. I think some people said it was a little bit out of scale, and especially if you do place him next to that Saga Collection figure, they do look pretty different. So I don't know, maybe just to get it out there, maybe this Legacy one's good enough.
And in my TIE Pilot research, apparently, because the AT-AT driver helmet is a repaint of the TIE Fighter helmet, so I think, if they spend their tooling money correctly, they could knock them both out at the same time. Lobot is another character who really should have been updated with the carbon freezing playset. Yeah. He was last done in 2004 along with Lando. He was in the regular original trilogy collection. And I like the look of that figure, but the articulation and is just not quite there.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be again, he's one of those characters that doesn't necessarily need to be articulated at the wazoo. But he does need some.
Unless you want the disco version from Robot Chicken.
Oh yeah, for sure. Which let's be honest, we all do. But
yeah, is not necessary. As far as the Bespin security guards, they released 2 in Legacy Collection. One was the alien Utris Imtok, and one was supposedly Sergeant Edian, but to me, it kind of looks like they sculpted Sergeant Merrill, who is Alan Harris, who played Bossk, and then they painted him a different skin color, which is problematic, et cetera, but it doesn't really look like either character. So I wouldn't mind. I like the body of that figure.
Again, they repacked the alien one into the Vintage Collection 3-pack, didn't they?
Yeah. And then we need the mustache version as well with a sweet, sweet handlebar.
Yeah.
So I think that's another one they could have easily put into the carbon playset. I don't think that guy needs the ball joint hips or anything, but easy redo. Clearly, we're all thrilled by the Bespin security guards, so
probably my favorite character from Empire.
I got to get him into the line immediately. Yeah. So that wraps up the Empire figures. But what are your guys' most wanted original '96 updates, either from these movies or from the ones we haven't covered yet?
What am I most wanted? 96. So, what, I can include Jedi in that, can I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I would probably say Bib Fortuna and Squid Head are 2 very, very,
for sure,
very big ones for me. And I know we haven't discussed those today because we're not on to Jedi, but those 2 are very, very big for me, especially as we've had so many of Jabba's goons over the last few years with the playset and the barge and the skiff and what have you. We already had quite a few of them in it as well. So those 2 desperately need doing for me. Out of the ones that we've talked about today, I think Hammerhead is a huge one for me. And resculpts of those 4 heroes, Luke, Leia, Ben, and Han Solo.
For sure.
For me, definitely those 4, with Ben Kenobi being top priority for me, having a new one. Ben, Leia, Luke, Han, definitely Bib Fortuna. Although I'm not sure, it's like I want a fat one too now. Crime Boss version, even though he was only alive for 30 seconds, if that. Those 4 for sure. The Emperor was on that list, but I guess a little birdie we all are familiar with says that's coming. The rest is all just kind of cake to me. It's like every OG 96 figure, even those Walmart ones that I know some folks are not pleased with, like the Leia and whatnot. I am pretty stoked to get them in general, like in concept. I enjoy them all, but there are those few that are just like, get the Malakili. I need a Malakili like now. So,
and he's an example of a Legacy Collection figure who was great then and doesn't really need any updates. I'm sure they'll do photoreal if they do him.
So, but that's the beauty of Star Wars with all of the lush worlds, background characters, aliens, just really fleshing out all of this stuff. And that's kind of part of the appeal of the Heritage Scale, is having that world building capability. So I'd like to see Hasbro utilize that more.
I think my most wanted at this point from A New Hope would be Leia, just classic Leia, because they even put the 2004 figure on the Tantive 4 playset box. Like she's peeking around like she's a little bit embarrassed to be there because she knows she's, she's from 17 years ago. It doesn't quite fit the rest of the line, but that's kind of my most wanted. Luke and Han and Obi-Wan definitely as well. Yeah. And Hammerhead. So how would you guys like to see them finish the 96? Would you like to see them do a handful a year or get a big set out, a HasLab set with all of them? Walmart exclusives. I know that's everybody's favorite preference here.
I would certainly not want Walmart exclusive.
Yeah. I think if there's a guarantee of, say, 4 or 5 of them every year, I'd be quite happy with that as a steady progression into doing it. I think that it would, and they probably know this as well, I think that if they finished it all in, rather quickly, I think they might lose a few people really, because I know there are people that only collect the OT and they might get a few Mandalorians. So it's about snagging people into other areas along the way. So they're going to stretch it out as long as they can, I think. But as long as the promise is there that they are going to do it, then I will buy everything in the vintage collection until, well, forever. But, I want that sort of guarantee that that we are gonna get them.
Yeah. Because I think it's kind of a carrot they're dangling in front of some collectors right now. It's going to happen at some point. Because the only figure that hasn't been updated at all from the vintage line would be the Imperial Dignitary Simalu. They did other Imperial Dignitaries, and there's mustaches they got to add and different versions of characters they got to redo. So they're very close, and I'm really glad they've recommitted to doing it the last few years. Clearly, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of gray area. And there's a lot of fun to be had collecting these guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, then that kind of seems like a good place to wrap up.
It's been fun.
We can talk more about TIE pilot helmets for another half an hour if you guys want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tim, anything you want to plug? Do you want to kind of let folks know where they can find you? I mean, not that they'll have any mystery with it, but, feel free to be doing shameless plugs right now.
Well, I live mainly in terms of social media on Twitter and Instagram. I don't really... I do have a Facebook page, but I don't really do too much with it. Obviously, my YouTube channel is my main area, but I do have a website as well. I've got the like a vintage collection sort of guide, if you like. It's more of like a visual guide of all the card backs and what have you. I try and keep that up to date as much as I possibly can. It doesn't go too much into variant scars and all this kind of stuff on the figures, but just a representation of all the cards and all the vehicles and what have you. So people might want to check that out.
Sweet. And that's, it's all Bossk's Bounty across the board.
So Instagram and Twitter is at Bossk's Bounty, and the website is www.bosksbounty.com.
Tim, again, thank you so much for sitting down and letting us chat for well over an hour.
It's a pleasure, man. I've had a great time. Always like to talk about toys.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I would love to have you on again. We're still kind of figuring out all this fun stuff, so just hit us up if you ever are wanting to chat about anything or have any ideas of things to gab about. I keep trying to come up with different words instead of filling in with swearing, as I am prone to do. So I say words like heck and gab. That's great. Anyway, John, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram at @TheVintageConcepts, where you can look at our Finish the 96 posts on SWTVC. So you can't do that let's take that again. You can find me on Instagram at TheVintageConcepts, and you can also find us at SWTVC, where you'll find the Finish the 96 posts, where I just wrapped those up the other day. And shout out to our teammate Carlo, who has been doing amazing work on our website, SWTVC.net, where it's kind of a hub for everything we do, including, merch like these beautiful Finish the 96 t-shirts. You find our podcast on different areas, though you don't need help finding it because you're listening to it right now. But if you do need help in the future, you can go to that website.
All right. Sweet. And please, if you're so inclined after listening to this episode, if you like it or even just want us to stop asking you about it, would you please just subscribe and leave a nice little review and rate it? Really, anything helps. It's great. Join the conversation on Instagram. I guess we have a Twitter. I've never used it, but I'll ask Carlo about that. You can find us on Twitter at, I guess, something SWTVC. Anyway, that about does it for this episode. Tim, John, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Remember, finish the 96. May the vintage collection be with you.
Always.